Recorded Books and RB Digital present The Lost Founding Father, John Quincy Adams, and the Transformation of American Politics, by William J. Hooper. Narrated by Richard Poe. Part 1, 1767 to 1817. Preparation, Diplomacy, and Politics. Chapter 1. To bring myself into notice. John Quincy Adams's life differed sharply from that of the men with whom he would come later to share the national stage. The son of John and Abigail Adams, he was in so many ways a founding father by extension. His travel and education so unique that he would have been more companionable with figures of the 18th century European Enlightenment than with the bruising politicians who would come to occupy the nation's capital in the 1830s and 1840s. No one else in his generation of American leaders, not John C. Calhoun, Henry Clay, Martin Van Buren, Daniel Webster, and certainly not Andrew Jackson, experienced Europe as a youth, accompanying his father in the 1770s and 1780s on diplomatic missions. While he traveled in countries like France, Spain, England, Holland, and Russia, even translating French at the court of Catherine the Great, most of the men who would become his political contemporaries gained their own formative life experiences on the frontiers of rural America, often joining the country's relentless advance westward. John Quincy's education at Harvard, where he studied subjects like Greek, Latin, and moral and natural philosophy, would come to distinguish him as well, separating him from most of these individuals who had limited formal schooling. Moreover, he was directly exposed to the ideas of the Enlightenment that so influenced his father and other founders, chiefly their embrace of reason and the conviction that human beings could fashion a better world. Furthermore, as the son of the second president, John Quincy from an early age came into contact with this entire generation, whom we now call the Founding Fathers, men like Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson. While still in his 20s, John Quincy impressed the most notable founder of them all, President George Washington, who named the young man to an important foreign post. No other future political leader of his generation could present such a formidable resume. John Quincy Adams was born on July 11, 1767, in Braintree, Massachusetts, a few miles southeast of Boston. The Adams homestead was in that part of Braintree which would later become the town of Quincy. He was the second child and first son of John and Abigail Smith Adams. The Adamses would have two more sons, born in 1770 and 1772 respectively, who lived into adulthood, and a daughter who died in infancy. The ancestry of both John and Abigail dated back to the beginning of the Massachusetts colony in the 1630s. Their household found the Puritan cultural heritage in full flower, devotion to religion, to the family, to duty, to self-improvement, including education, to a stern moral code, and to doubts about inherent individual worth. John, the son of a farmer, aged 29, married Abigail, daughter of a minister, aged 20, in 1764. An ambitious young attorney at the time of his marriage, John strove to improve his status economically and socially. With his business increasing in the early 1770s, he moved to Boston. Almost immediately, John became caught up in the growing conflict between Great Britain and its North American colonies, stretching along the Atlantic seacoast from Massachusetts south to Georgia on the border of Spanish Florida. The unrest centered on a dispute over the legitimate authority the British government could exert over its colonists, who especially objected to what they termed illegal and unconstitutional taxes imposed on them from London. By the time John began residence in Boston, talk of possible armed conflict between mother country and colonies began to spread. The most ardent opponents of Great Britain's policy phrased their position as affirming local liberty against British tyranny. Some even began to speak of revolution, of independence. No colony outpaced Massachusetts in the increasing tension and in the determination, if necessary, to confront British authority with force. British officials in London and Boston responded in kind, committed to upholding
Sample complete. Ready to continue?